Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most merciful and the most compassionate. Assalamu alaikum to all of you. You all know the word salam and its meaning by now. That was such a beautiful rendering of peace. Salam means peace, and when we say assalamu alaikum, we say peace upon all of you. But in Islamic tradition, as-salam is also the name of God. So when we say assalamu alaikum, not only are we praying that may peace be with you, we are also praying that may God be with you. I feel deeply moved and touched and honored by my inclusion in today's service. Reverend Gregory Jones is like an elder brother to me in spirituality, and I think it is absolutely fantastic that he has completed 40 years of service in the service of God and in the service of humanity and in the service of this church. I would like to thank and congratulate him for his service, but I would also like to thank this church for being so blessed that you have him, and I'm sure that you have become richer because of him, and he has also become a better servant of God because of his congregation. Without his church, he would not be a pastor. But above all, I also want to thank Camilla Jones for letting Greg be Greg. As a man who likes to serve people and God, and who also loves his wife, I know that we cannot do anything without the love, blessing, support, and permission of our partners in life. This 40 years, as Jim Mosley said, is very interesting from a spiritual point of view. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, became a prophet at the age of 40. And in Islamic traditions, we believe that men do not reach maturity until they reach the age of 40. So I think Greg has now reached maturity as a pastor. And while I'm sure everybody is grateful for everything that you did in the last 40 years, the real work begins now, Greg, from tomorrow. We're all children of Adam. Muslims have just celebrated the Eid, which also requires those who can afford and those who have opportunity, like Brother Naveed and also money, can go and perform the Hajj in celebrating the piety and sacrifice of the family of Abraham. May peace be upon him and his family. It is in his memory that I want to recite a verse from the Quran in which God says, "Who is better in faith? Who is better in faith than him or her who has sacrificed their entire identity in the service of God?" Who is better than him or her in faith who has sacrificed their entire identity in the service of God, and therefore God took Abraham as his intimate friend. So it is a fabulous statement of God's relationship with with Abraham as an intimate friend. And I think after 40 years of selfless service, Greg, I think, also deserves that title as a friend of God. And from today onwards, I'm also going to get into the habit of name dropping. And I'm going to say, Greg is a friend of God and he's my friend, so you know. I'm connected too. Greg is not just your pastor. He's the pastor of Delaware and beyond. He has stood up for social justice in this state more often than not. He's been there when racism showed its head. He was there when anti-Semitism showed its head. He was there when Islamophobic events have happened. He has attended and stood up with Muslims in solidarity on more occasions than I can remember. And even as far away as the Holy Land, his struggle and his voice for social justice, for equality and freedom is resonating. So in many ways, Greg is also the pastor of Delaware. Now, if only if he was also the pastor of America, then America would indeed be great again. Greg has been a mentor to me in many ways. This church, I have spoken here so many times, numerous times, has become an important station in my journey of spirituality. I have given here many lectures on mysticism, on Islam, on the mysticism of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And those lectures, in an open, highly tolerant environment where people who are of God, people whose hearts are open to the mysteries of God and to spirituality, listen to me, allowed me to grow in ways where other forums would not allow me to grow in my spirituality. And all of this was facilitated by Reverend Gregory Jones, and therefore I think of him as an important mentor for me, spiritually speaking. He has spoken in my classes on justice, he has spoken at our masajid, and so we are all very grateful for him. I want to share a particular moment. I was in Dover when I heard about the shooting in Orlando, and I was horrified. But I also realized that this was going to be a major event and may contribute to the growth of Islamophobia exponentially. So it was critical and important that Muslim community come out immediately and condemn what happened in Orlando. I was in Dover. I'd gone there to drop my son for something called Boys State or some event like that. And it was already 4 o'clock, and the headline news was all about Orlando. So I was trying to reach various members of the Muslim congregations, and I was having trouble finding a mosque to have a press conference so that we could condemn what happened in Orlando and express the solidarity of Muslims with the victims and send our prayers to them and our support to them. And so I call Gregory Jones, and this church then became the platform, the forum from which Naveed and I came here and condemned the shootings in Orlando. And we also reached out to the victims and sent our prayers and blessings and expressed our solidarity for the victims of the Orlando shooting from this church. So in many ways, this church is a second home, not just to me, but to our community too. Many, many years before Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, became a prophet, he was living as an ordinary person in the city of Mecca, there were many criminals in the city, and so people who used to come to Mecca were often robbed. And there was one particular case where a businessman came to Mecca and he was cheated out of his goods, and he had no recourse to help, so he just reached out to the community of Mecca. And the leaders of Mecca got together and created something called Hilf al-Fudul, or it was the League of the Virtuous. And the objective of that League of Virtuous was to ensure that justice prevailed in Mecca. So these people of goodwill, these people who cared about justice, got together in order to ensure that social justice, equality, safety, and peace prevailed in the city of Mecca. And under the leadership of Greg, imams, pastors, reverends, rabbis have come together many times to act as the League of Virtuous in Delaware to do good things. Even though it's informal, I think, Greg, since we already have our capes and uniforms, it could be like the League of Justice, you know. So we should have the League of the Virtuous to stand up for social justice and for peace in the state of Delaware. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He continues to serve you and the community of Delaware for many, many years to come. And I hope that the impact of His service, the impact of His love continues to resonate in our state. Amen.